Hi, everybody. My name is Haley. I'm here from ProWritingAid. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Great to see so many of you guys here. If this is your first time joining us, hello, welcome. As many of you know, a few months ago, the kind of world changed a lot for a lot of us. And so our way of helping the ProWritingAid community kind of stay inspired and productive has been to reach out to people in the writing community, so people within our circles and our friends' circles, and see if they would offer something to our community for free, something they would want to teach our writers here. And it's been so much fun. So our session today with Janelle has kind of come out of that. She volunteered to come with us and teach us all about her memoir writing process. Janelle is a writer, host, artist, and host of the Personal Mythmaking podcast, and she's the creator and teacher of a transformational memoir writing course called The Art of Personal Mythmaking. Janelle is a born and raised Yukonner, a solo mother, and she's been working as a trauma-informed body worker in the hands-on healing arts field for more than 13 years, and she's been working as an artist for more than 17 years. She's taught adults all over in her living room, in art centers and universities, in many different settings. For the past 4 years, she's integrated all of her areas expertises into teaching people how to kind of do creative healing through transformational memoir writing. So we're so excited to have Janelle here today. And Janelle, I'm going to turn it over to you to get started.
Thank you, Haley. And hello, everyone. I'm so excited to be sharing some of what I know in this workshop. And I've been watching the chat. I know some of you. Thank you for showing up. And a happy shout out to the person from Northwest Territories, a fellow Northerner. So I'm just going to share my screen and get started. I have a lot to share. As Haley mentioned, I am the creator and teacher of a transformational memoir writing course called The Art of Personal Mythmaking, and just an overall super creative person who's also very interested in. Okay, so we'll start with some questions. Okay, so my first question, have you ever wanted to write your memoirs? Clearly you do, or you wouldn't be at this webinar. But my next question is, why haven't you started yet? Or if you've started, where are you stuck? And so write this down if you can, and consider what are the deeper reasons, because when I tell people that I teach memoir writing, I would say 80% of people's eyes light up. They get really excited. This is a really shared dream. And then the confessions start to flow out. I've wanted to do this for 5 years, for 10 years, for 20 years, even 35 years, and haven't started, or I keep getting started and then I keep stopping, I keep getting stuck, I keep setting it aside for later. So in my opinion, this is a problem, because when we have a calling to work with our life stories, that won't leave us alone. And if you've been putting it off for more than even a year, this is a deep calling for you. When it won't leave you alone, you have to use a lot of your life force energy to suppress and set it aside. You're constantly investing energy into setting it aside, into resisting the calling rather than doing it. And that's part of what we're going to explore here. Okay, so the other part of this question is, have you ever felt stuck creatively, that instead of creating, making art, writing, you're in resistance, creative block, writer's block, whatever you call it, you're stuck. This is another very common experience. So just consider how you get stuck. How you get stuck is going to be unique to you. There's some shared commonalities, which I'll go over later. But what I'm actually really interested in is, how does the stuckness and the resistance feel in your body? Because the way that I work with healing and with memoir writing and getting people, supporting getting unstuck and learning how to move through resistance actually has to do with your body. So how does it feel in your body? Just see if you can identify any sort of sensations. For me, I often start to contract, to tighten up, and also get a very foggy head. Okay. All right, a couple more questions. What is your biggest fear about writing your memoirs? And what's the biggest thrill? What is most exciting about considering writing your memoirs? The fear is likely what is stopping you, and the excitement is the fuel that can help you to move forward in getting it written down. Okay, so does this also sound like you? You want to be able to write your memoirs without overwhelm, procrastination, and writer's block. You have a feeling that memoir writing is more than just writing. In fact, you know it's also about healing, which is both exciting and overwhelming. Maybe you've written a lot of your life story down, but you're having trouble organizing and making sense of it. There's always a messy middle in the process, not only in your writing process, but also the healing process, where things start to feel like they disintegrate. They don't have a focus. That can be a place where we get very easily stuck in self-doubt. It's likely you've tried to work with your life story all alone, and it's also likely that's been very challenging. So you probably wish you could get some support and have fun with it too. I suspect you want to be able to drop into creative flow and stay out of overwhelm, procrastination, and perfectionism, and you don't like feeling stuck. Who does really? These states of resistance feel so sticky. And again, I'm going to bring you always back to your body. How does the stickiness of resistance feel in your body? And body-based work around resistance and creative block is not done very often or addressed very often. So we have a lot of tools and techniques that are easy to find online. And you may have noticed that it's still hard to get unstuck. A lot of them don't include the body. You've probably tried to outsmart yourself, to outthink yourself, to just show up and do the work. You've maybe done affirmations, read all the self-help and writing books. By the way, research and learning the craft is also a great way to indulge in resistance, but feel virtuous about it. I've done it too. Just saying that if that's you, beware of going down the rabbit hole of research in order to not write. It's likely you've tried all the things that you've found and it hasn't really worked. You still feel stuck. So in all of this talk about writer's block, mindset, and resistance, you might have a feeling something's missing, and you probably know it's also about healing deep down inside, and this is exciting and scary. And it's often this knowing that we need support in our healing process, especially when working with life story work. The knowing is what stops us from starting. If we also know somewhere within us that we need support and we need resourcing, that we can't do it all on our own. So it can also be a really supportive coping mechanism to be in resistance. So I don't want you beating yourself up about feeling stuck or in resistance around diving into healing and working with your life story either. So the other challenge that can happen is that you get partway through your memoir and then you get stuck. So it's not a problem of starting, but it's a problem of continuing and completing. And again, it's often doubt, perfectionism, overwhelm, and procrastination that takes over. Or this is another kind of beware. You suddenly lose interest, even though you want to finish your projects, and you bolt off to the next cool thing. That is a form of resistance too. It's also tough, sticky, and uncomfortable. And if you've noticed this is a pattern in your life, I'm just suggesting it's not, maybe not so much that you just always lose interest as that it's another coping mechanism to avoid the part that feels too overwhelming. And I have some supportive solutions for you, so don't worry. You wish you could just get some support and even enjoy getting unstuck instead of spinning your wheels trying to figure it out. When we're in the figuring it out mode, we're really in our heads, often doing a lot of research, ruminating, thinking over and over, trying to figure things out, and getting stuck in the head when the healing needs a body-based connection is going to get us nowhere. And then you get an added layer of feeling so frustrated because you're aware that you're spinning your wheels and you're stuck, but you don't know what else to do. Partly because we live in a culture that's very oriented around the intellectual thinking processes. So what you're going to learn and do today with me is how to write your memoirs and heal with your body as your most trusted ally, making your body the first stop for resourcing. I just want to share a little testimonial as an example of what can happen when you make your body your priority. So Lisa, who's worked with me from Colorado Springs, says, I've made Janelle's body-based exercises a daily practice to gently calm and regulate my nervous system. Over a few months, I've noticed that I can relax more deeply and feel less stressed. My writing is richer and deeper, leading me places I didn't expect and remembering more details than when I don't start with the body-based prompt. So what I'm going to teach you is really gentle, and it is significant in how the shifts can happen. I'm actually going to pause because I'm a little nervous. I have so much I want to share and pack into this short amount of time with you, and I've noticed that I'm starting to talk really fast. the reason, I'm just using myself as an example here, the reason I can really tell is that I can feel this kind of shakiness in my belly and a kind of inner vibration, as well as hearing my talking speed up. So feel free to breathe with me if you'd like. I'm just going to take an inhale. And on the exhale, extending it a little longer than my inhale. So this is actually one of my first tips. Extend your exhale a little longer will help to calm and settle you. And you can probably already tell my voice is a little dropped down, a little slower. Okay. So monitoring our physical self can really support our healing and our presentation skills. So 4 things you're going to learn and do today with me. First, I'm going to keep talking about why writing about your life requires tending to your healing needs. It has to do with how resistance, which is overwhelm, procrastination, and perfectionism, offer you clues about what needs your attention. Second, how this resistance is connected to your body's nervous system. Third, how to shift it with your body. And I just actually taught you the first little one, which is the breath. And then I'm going to teach you these 3 extra techniques: gravity is your friend, OMG, and sharing the good. They're all very short, very easy to do. They don't require anything extra or special. So we're going to start with the first of the 3 body-based exercises called Gravity is Your Friend. So it's very short, very quick. What I'll get you to do is just bring your attention into your body. If this is unfamiliar for you, the most useful way to start doing that is actually just pat yourself. Give yourself a sensation in your skin to bring your attention into, to notice, oh, here's my body. This is the outer layer, my skin. Okay, and what does it feel like? All right. Now bringing your attention down into your sit bones. So I'm assuming most of you are sitting. If you're standing or lying down, you just bring your attention into the part of you that is touching the ground or the chair. Give yourself a little wiggle to, again, just really feel the sensation of being on your sit bones, being on your bum. And notice that this is what tells us where gravity pulls us down towards. So gravity is a trustworthy force. Gravity is also invisible. It's kind of like electricity. We know that it's a force that affects us. We can't really see it, but we see the effects of it. We see that everything is attached to the earth, that if we trip and we fall, we're going to land on the ground. We're always going to fall downwards towards the earth, right? Now, this is also useful to tune into, despite whatever else is going on in your life, to tune into the fact that when you bring your attention into your body, you can feel the effect of gravity securing you to the earth. You can look around and see that gravity is holding everything together and through a downward pull, and you can ground yourself through that. So bringing your attention back to your sit bones, to any part of you that's pressing downward towards the floor, just notice the sensation that tells you that this is happening. If you've got your legs crossed, you can actually feel the pressure of the weight of your top leg on your bottom leg, and that pressure tells you that gravity is working on you. And now what you're going to do is just visualize these invisible strings, these threads, pulling us down and down, down, down through the surface of your building, into the earth, through the topsoil, all the way down into the molten center of the earth. And you can just picture all these invisible threads of the force of gravity acting on you, okay? So no matter what else is going on in your life and in your writing, in your healing work, you can always attune yourself to the field of gravity and know that you're held in that field, okay? So my next question, having done this, is what did you notice in yourself? What shifted? Write it down, and especially take time to name the physical sensations. So I'm always going to be going back to the physical. How do we know in our body that a shift has happened? Through naming the physical sensations. And as a side note, the better we get at naming physical sensations, the more interesting our writing is going to be, because we'll be bringing in the sense of touch, especially, and interoception, which is the inner experience in our bodies. Okay, so before we continue, I'm going to tell you a little bit more about me, how I got here, how I learned all of this, so that you know that I'm trustworthy and that I have the skills I'm about to teach you, and just a little bit of storytelling. So when I was 7, I asked for a typewriter for my birthday. Some part of me knew before I really knew that creativity and writing was my path, and how could you not want a typewriter? From the age of 6 to 11, I was most often found curled up in armchairs or stretched out on my stomach on the floor, devouring every volume of fairy tales I could find. This is significant because I actually use fairy tales as part of my memoir writing process, both for the healing and for orienting around themes and a narrative arc. If you sign up for my Outline Your Memoir workshop, you're going to have that experience. From the age of 17 to 23, I immersed myself cross-culturally in homestays with Japanese, Russian, and Jamaican Canadian families. I learned, not fully, but I learned a lot of the Japanese and Russian languages, and then I went on to study anthropology and dance. So I became an apprentice to culture, to how it's transmitted through language, dance, body language, and especially through stories, like fairy tales, myth. But I also, from the age of 12 to 27, started to freeze up. This is important. This is part of the body-based healing that I'm going to be talking about later. I developed chronic fatigue. I struggled with immobilizing purple blush shyness. I stopped speaking my truth and I started doubting myself. It was very embarrassing to blush that much, so I would keep myself silent. I became intensely blocked creatively. I felt really stuck. All of my creative visions were in my head. It was very hard to get them out. And so pain is a great motivator. I sought healing. And I had life experiences anyways. Life didn't stop because of that, but it just got more challenging. So in my late teens, 20s, and 30s, I made a lot of art at a professional level, with writing, with painting, with dance. And although I was creatively productive, it was very painful. I would create in intense bursts, in between spending excruciating blocks of time, months and sometimes years, so creatively blocked in resistance that I couldn't create a single thing, even though that's all I thought about. And if you've had this longing to write your memoir and you've been putting it off, I suspect this is a familiar state for you as well. So at the age of 24, I started to heal myself. I received the Structural Integration series and discovered the world of body-based hands-on healing. I felt transformed, and I learned I could be free of mental and emotional restrictions by following my body's lead. So at the age of 27, I became an apprentice to people's life stories, their bodies and their body wisdom, by becoming a structural integration practitioner. This is Rolfing, if you're familiar with Rolfing. I spent the next 13 years taking over 300 people through an 11-session trauma-informed transformational healing process that was body-based, but was also about life story work. So it wasn't writing, but it's the foundation of how I approach memoir these days. In my 20s and 30s, I continued to be a practicing artist, and through my challenges, I became really intimate with all things creativity and the creative process, as well as all things mindset and resistance, including writer's block. I also experienced heartbreak and challenges. And these are some of the reasons why we don't actually write our memoirs when we're wanting to, because the pain of the painful experiences feels too daunting to revisit. So during that time, I also became a single mother, self-employed, married, divorced. I watched my father die from leukemia. These experiences forced me to seek out support and healing, to make meaning. And I started to notice the connections between creativity, resistance, creative block, and stuckness, the body and its nervous system, our life stories, and our deep need for healing. So maybe you can relate. I'm sharing my experiences because there's such human challenges. There's nothing unique about what I've experienced. We all have a range of these incredible, beautiful moments and deeply wrenching, heartbreaking moments. And for me, the pain of being stuck and blocked was a catalyst for helping me to make meaning of my life. And I see that in the people that I work with. It is a tremendous catalyst. And we often need more support than we think we do. So in my late 30s, finally, it all came together. The creativity, body-based healing, transformational processes, life story work, memoir writing, and my own struggles into what I do now, which is the Art of Personal Mythmaking, my transformational memoir writing course. So it's my belief that memoir writing is meaning making, that our bodies, our creativity, and our life stories are interconnected, that memoir writing is inherently healing work. And it should just be framed that way, rather than people, what I see often diving into working with memoir and stumbling into the great deep pit of trauma and trauma responses and distress and a total lack of support. Memoir writing is not just writing. It's also, I mean, it's so intimate. It's ourselves and our relationship to ourselves. So to heal, to shift out of resistance and stuckness, we must seek out the wisdom of our bodies and inquire within, because our bodies have a whole lot to tell us, and most of us come from cultures where we've been trained to ignore what our body has to say. So shifting resistance is also healing work, and using our bodies to shift resistance is illuminating and freeing. Using our bodies and using fairy tales for memoir writing is also magical and fun. There's a wonderful sense of expansion and possibility that comes with approaching our life stories in this way. So let's get started. Of course, we've started already, but let's keep going. So consider these possibilities and just jot down some notes. How would you feel if you weren't stuck longing to write your memoirs? Instead of getting bogged down and overwhelmed, how would you feel if you could finish your memoirs? Memoir or memoirs. Some people write more than one. So I'm going to just talk a little bit about resistance. Resistance is most commonly overwhelm, procrastination, perfectionism, and self-doubt. This is an experience of, in our bodies and our nervous system, of having the foot on the gas and the foot on the brakes simultaneously. Resistance is like in this picture, if you've ever had to fling those heavy ropes, lift them up off the ground and fling them in an exercise class, it's a lot of work. The amount of energy to get those ropes off of the ground, to get them out of the resistant state of being at rest is tremendous. So resistance is an act of opposing. It's any force that tends to retard or oppose motion. So just consider that in yourself. Where are you actively opposing what you're longing for, and how are you feeling that in yourself? Sometimes it's subtle, sometimes it's really obvious. Overwhelm, like in this picture, there's just too much, and it's hard to differentiate what you're after and what's the main thing to focus on. So overwhelm is a state of feeling overpowered. It's often a state of kind of a brain fog where you start to feel frozen and paralyzed. You don't know, out of all the decisions you could make, which is the right one, and how to make a focus and move forward. So the state of overwhelm is really a stuck state. Procrastination is another big one, the habit of putting off or delaying, stalling, postponing, and prolonging. This is subtle but active resistance. So it's kind of like you're fighting against what you're aiming for. It uses up a lot of energy. Anyone who's a pro procrastinator knows that. For example, I can spend 5 hours procrastinating against an intention to meditate for 15 minutes. So, you know, which one is a more efficient use of my time and energy? Clearly just to sit down and meditate or to do a 15-minute writing prompt. But the tendency to procrastinate and resist what is good for me, what is good for you, what will feed your soul can be quite powerful. Perfectionism. Perfectionism is easy to hide behind as just wanting the best. Actually, it's rooted in a fear of not being good enough. There's a lot of shame underlying perfectionism in having demands for the highest standard of excellence that we'll never be able to achieve, right? Not being willing to make mistakes and do something imperfectly in order to learn the skills, for example. And doubt. So doubt is a lack of belief or conviction, and then when we turn that on ourselves into self-doubt, a lack of confidence in ourselves and our abilities, this also can be related quite strongly to perfectionism. And if we're really doubting ourselves, we're going to be resisting movement forward into our memoirs. And all of these are body-based experiences. Are they resonating and are they sounding familiar? We all have one or two that we tend to engage in a little more than the others, but they're quite common in resistance. But the good news is that resistance is connected to our bodies and specifically to our nervous system, and it can be shifted, and not through trying to outthink it or outsmart yourself, but actually through tending to our nervous system. So I'm just going to tell you a quick story about a cat and a bird. I grew up with cats, and they would hunt sometimes, and sometimes they'd catch a bird and bring it inside and it would still be alive. And I'd come across this scene of this predator hunting this prey animal. And so the bird would often be alive, but struggling, and the cat, this menacing presence, would be there. And so the bird would kind of try to run away, and the cat would catch it, bring it back to its spot. And the bird would go through these alternating states of trembling, trying to run, and then kind of freezing up and being really still. So these are all trauma responses in the nervous system, the fight, flight, and freeze response. So what would happen when I'd rescue the bird? This is really important. I'd rescue the bird, I'd shoo the cat away, I'd put it in a little cardboard box, and then I'd watch the bird, and it would become really clear really quickly if the bird was going to make it. So what would happen once the bird realized it was safe and away from the predator is that it would go from this frozen state, because of course when I would catch the bird would perceive me as a terrible threat as well. It doesn't know the difference. I'm just this enormous creature capturing it. So it would freeze up because there's no way to fight back and there's no way to run away. So it would freeze up and not move. I put it in this little box, and I'd back away, and it would start to realize that it's safe. And at that point, it would go from a frozen state to a really trembly, shaky state. And sometimes it would like emit little chirps and little noises, and it would shake and it would flutter, and it would kind of look like it was shedding water off of its back. And this would go on for a while. And then all of a sudden, whew, it would just be a bird acting like a bird, looking around and hopping. And at that point, I would know, as long as there weren't life-threatening injuries, that I could take it out into the woods and let it go, and it would be fine. So what I just described to you is the trauma response state of going into fight, flight, and freeze after being in an acute stress from a perceived life threat, the cat. Now, what happens to us as humans is we usually don't get a chance to discharge that energy. The discharge is the bird in the little box having its little shake it off, trembly experience. It's really important for our nervous system to be able to discharge the fight, flight, and freeze state in order to get back into an equilibrium that's healthy. But as humans, we're able to override that, and we're often shamed as children, as adults, for having a healthy discharge response, which usually means shaking, crying, babbling, trying to bolt. And so we learn how to control ourselves. And when we learn how to control ourselves, it's like we've put our foot on the gas and our foot on the brakes simultaneously, and we can't take either of the foot off. Our nervous system gets caught in one of these states, either fight, flight, or freeze. And because our nervous system doesn't register time the same way that our brain does, as long as we're stuck in that state, even if decades have passed, we still have symptoms related to being really ready to deal with the threat that has passed, but our system doesn't know that. So our system doesn't get us a chance to discharge that state. You get stuck, forms of resistance develop, and this is what I'm just going to explain so that it makes more sense. And a lot of these forms of stuckness are health challenges, and they're also creative challenges and mindset challenges that have to do with the body. So this is exciting to me because it's possible to make a change. Nervous system symptoms are your body, psyche, body, mind, spirit, your whole system's call for healing. And the symptoms speak to us to get our attention, right? So I'm going to describe some of these symptoms, and just take note of anything that resonates with you, whether you've personally experienced it or you have a gut reaction to it or your intuition pings about it. And I'm also going to suggest you come back to this recording of this session to revisit this, because I'm going to whip through it fairly quickly. I'm going to describe the symptoms, and then I'm going to take us through the next body-based exercise. So if you notice you have a reaction of like, ooh, well, don't worry, we're going to calm and settle and shift that. So Symptoms that might mean your nervous system is dysregulated. And I'm just saying might because there can be other reasons for it. But if you have these symptoms and nothing you've been trying has helped, it might mean your nervous system is part of the reason why. So chronic unrelenting stress, extreme shyness, hyper alertness, being a hyper-focused type A person, overwhelming emotional states, or difficulty expressing emotions, lethargy, shutdown, overwhelm, or fear for reasons that don't make sense to you, an underlying sense that you can't relax, unceasing critical thoughts, aches and pains that move around for no clear reason, anxiety or depression, chronic illnesses and fatigue that aren't helped by anything you try in the mainstream or alternative medicine, IBS or gut issues, again, that don't resolve themselves no matter what you try, pelvic discomfort, coping through the use of substances regularly. Other experiences that can dysregulate our nervous system that we may not think would are having had surgery, major and or ongoing dental work, birth trauma, either you as a newborn or you as a parent giving birth, car accidents, being exposed to other people's traumatic experiences, adverse childhood experiences, and different forms of abuse. So let's just pause and tune into our body's sensations. How are you feeling as I just described this? Just notice. And this is the second of our 3 body-based exercises, which is so useful. It's called OMG, and it stands for Orient, Mobilize, and Ground. So the first step is orient. What you're going to do is you're going to take your eyes off of the screen and you're going to look around in the room that you're in. And you're going to let your eyes land on a specific object, tangible object in that room. And you're going to name 3 specific details about that object. So I'll just use myself as an example. I'm looking at a glass. The glass is blue. There's water in the glass and it's made of glass. Okay, so nothing abstract, just really specific. If you can voice it out loud, great. If you can't, try to actually voice it in your head. Taking a breath, extending the exhale. We're going to do this a second time. Looking somewhere else in your room, let your eyes land on a specific tangible object and voice 3 details. And taking a full breath and extending the exhale. And one more time, move your gaze around again. Let your eyes land on a 3rd object. Notice 3 specific details. Voice them. Taking a breath. And bringing yourself back into the space together with us. And tune in to yourself now. What did you notice and what shifted? Again, it's really important to name the physical sensations. So as an example, just taking you through that exercise, my vision feels broader. I feel like I can see more into my peripheral vision than I could before I took you through that exercise. My belly feels more relaxed, just as an example, okay? So this is the great news. All of this stuckness and creative block, when it's related to your nervous system dysregulation, it can be healed through gentle, body-based, trauma-informed, and easy to implement practices. So this is how, in my opinion, and the work that I do, we shift resistance and creative block and approach healing so that we can really get into our life story work and approach the stories that feel scary or overwhelming or daunting, because we've got tools to tune into ourselves, to actually be able to understand when our body is trying to tell us that something needs our attention in order to work with the painful memories, right? The key to this is that it's very gentle, it's very slow, and we need to be persistent. So there's no like go hard or go home kind of ethos attached to nervous system work. It's just soften, be kind, keep repeating the work, and trust that things will shift by doing that, okay? By listening to our body sensations. Also important to note is that we refrain from labeling sensation as good or bad. Some sensation can feel distressing and some sensation can feel really pleasant. And we really want to just notice rather than going, oh, bad, I don't like that, and oh, good, let me pursue it. Just the noticing in itself can become quite healing. Okay. So how does all of this sound? Scary or familiar, new? Just write it down. And I'm going to take you through the third of these 3 body-based exercises. It's also short, but really great. And then I'll almost be done and there'll be time for questions and answers. So this is called sharing the good. And with sharing the good, what I'm going to do with you is actually get you to tune into your body again. It's always, always about the body with me. Bring your attention into your sit bones. Notice how gravity is working on your body. And now you're actually going to find the place of discomfort. Okay. What is feeling uncomfortable in your body right now? So as an example, the back of my neck is tight and between my shoulder blades is also feeling tight. And actually, like, I'm kind of clenching my bum. So discomfort, notice those places. Now you're going to shift and you're going to find a part of your body that feels good, that feels well. And if not well, that feels at least neutral. Okay. Tuning in again. And if I use myself as an example, the front of my ankles actually feels pretty neutral, kind of nice in that there's just no loud sensation, okay? Even if it's the size of a dime, if you can find one spot that feels neutral or good in your body, that's what you're aiming for. And now what you're going to do is you're going to ask the good feeling spot in your body to share that, to share the good with the more distressed, uncomfortable spots. Imagine the good or neutral area as just releasing that sensation like steam, like smoke, and it's flowing over to the places in your body that feel a little less comfortable and just settling in and permeating. Okay. So again, what did you notice and what shifted? Make sure to name the physical sensations of the shift. And to recap, today you learned why resistance and creative block are such powerful states and how to heal them using your body. You learned how resistance is connected to the state of your nervous system and how the fight, flight, freeze responses can be gently worked with and healed. These aren't magic pill solutions, they do take time. But again, if you go slow and gentle, and you stay persistent, it will shift. You also learned how to make your body your ally in healing and creativity. Making friends with gravity, OMG, and sharing the good. Please do revisit this recording if you need a refresher on these, because they are 3 really powerful tools that you can just keep bringing into your life. And particularly when you're doing your memoir writing, if you start to feel distress, you can pull out one of these 3 exercises to calm and settle and circle back around to what you're writing about. So you saw that it's possible to write your memoir and heal with body-based support, to get unstuck faster, to connect more deeply with your body, to identify your healing needs and patterns. And my suggestions for integrating after this workshop are to stay gentle yet persistent and to keep going. So lastly, I've got a couple freebies. I remembered this one last minute, which will extend on what I just taught you. It's a PDF on how to heal painful memories and using writing in your body. And then my free Outline Your Memoir workshop if you want to take the next steps of my process. Okay, and that is it.
Awesome, Janelle. Thank you so much. We've got a bunch of great questions coming through, so I'm going to get to those in a second. But I just wanted to reflect on one of them. And so I do a lot of writing myself, not memoir, but I work in fantasy, and I've never really thought about the physical experience that I have of procrastination and how it's truly it truly is a physical sensation where I'm just like, I do not want to do this. I can't sit still. And it's for me kind of this tension that I experience where when I sit down, it's almost like a physical resistance to starting to write on certain things. So I just found that so fascinating because I think about it, as you said, just in my head. head. I think about it as like, oh, I just have to get my mind right. And then I don't experience anything in my body ever. And then I continue to feel that tension. So yeah, it was very helpful for me. Lisa's going to drop the recordings. So for anyone who's been asking, we've had a lot of people who've asked for a recording of this because they want to be able to practice all of these. So we will be sending out a recording afterwards. So don't worry, you'll get this and you can have all of Janelle's exercises from there. Lisa's also dropping the upcoming events and then Janelle's workshop. And then Janelle, can you just remind us quickly, what was the download for the PDF? Was it just /memories? Personal mythmaking?
Yeah, personalmythmaking.com/memories.
Great.
Yeah.
So yeah, personalmythmaking.com/memories is for a PDF that continues these kind of healing exercises. Okay, so let's dive into the questions first. I had an interesting one for that came up in the chat, and I don't remember who it was from, but it was similar to me. So this person said, I'm not really in tune with my body. What recommendations do you have to start to be in tune with your body if you're not used to doing this type of work?
So the 3 exercises that I just taught are a really good, gentle starting point. There are many reasons why we cannot be in tune with our body. First off is that culturally in society, I'm speaking from a Western North American perspective, but it's a fairly common experience to be taught to disengage and to feel shame around body. So there's a lot of good reasons why most of us are disembodied by the time we're adults. And it's always a good idea to be gentle in returning to the body. So something I actually recommend is walking for at least 20 minutes. And try walking without making your mind busy with podcasts or learning things. Try walking without anything in your ears, but to look around and have an experience. But mostly to tune into the rhythm of your body walking. And the rhythmic act of walking is actually incredibly supportive of our creative processes as well. So tuning into movement at any time, just bringing our attention in and saying, what is the sensation that I'm feeling? Even as I'm talking, I'm kind of like tapping myself. Touching, just giving yourself a touch and asking the question, what does this feel like? Can I find a word for it? And so to bring that back to writing, it's also really useful for our writing skills to start discovering more and more language around body, because in the English language in particular, we don't have a lot of vocabulary for body-based experience. But when we encounter writing, that includes the senses. And the senses are our body. We're very visually oriented, and writing tends to reflect the visual. If we can pause and slow down and bring in our hearing, our taste, sense of touch, the writing will be richer. And in order to bring in the sense of touch, we have to give ourselves an experience to find the words to describe it. So it can be playful, right? If you're having trouble tuning into your body or feeling your body, try to also make it playful and not too pressurized. Just, oh, what does this feel like? What does this feel like compared to what does this feel like, for example?
Yeah, I love that idea of how it would enrich your vocabulary as you're writing too, to feel like, oh, okay, how does this feel to myself? There was another question. Someone asked, how is my memoir worth reading by the public, or is my memoir worth writing even if I'm not someone popular or someone with an audience? How is it valuable for me?
Oh, this is a really common question, actually. And so I always say, write for yourself first and foremost. Don't even think of sharing it. Even if you want to publish, don't censor yourself with the idea that someone's going to be reading it. The value in writing our memoir is that when we turn our attention onto our experiences and our memories, we transform in the process. We get to understand ourselves in a different way. And for the most part, it is really transformative, and it is really healing to spend some time exploring ourselves now and how we've become who we are through all of our experiences. And that is the most worthwhile thing in the world, to tend to our heart and our spirit and our stories and learn how to reframe them And then the next step after that is, well, do I want to share them? Maybe you don't, and that's totally fine. And if you do, then that's a whole other world of
yes. Awesome. Okay, so Ernest says, how do I write about my twin brother who was killed in a horrific auto accident about 50 years ago in my memoirs? I've been hesitant to write this chapter and it's fast approaching.
Well, it's really tough, right? So my suggestion, you've already used the word horrific. For me, that feels like the charge is still there in your memory, and the experience of the loss of your brother, was it?
Brother, yeah, brother, twin brother.
So what I recommend is that you set an intention to work with the story, and then you pull yourself back to the periphery. We don't actually have to dive right into the middle of the horror. We don't have to dive into the middle of the distress. We can kind of pull away to where we feel like it's possible to look at the memories in the story and write around the periphery first. And there's a lot of richness that can come from writing descriptions around the periphery, around maybe the day before, the month after, slowly bringing yourself a little bit closer, and always tuning into your responses of resistance and your physical responses, because that's what's going to tell you whether you're ready or not. And so say your heart starts pounding and you start to feel nauseous when you're thinking about writing this one thing, then write down your sensation, write down the experience of approaching the memory. Tend to your body sensation. Try with these 3 body-based exercises that I just taught you. Be gentle with yourself, retreat. It's probably going to take you more time than you would like it to take. And it's doable without re-traumatizing yourself by sticking yourself right into the middle, which is what a lot of people think that they have to do, partly because of this cultural idea of no pain, no gain. So that's my best recommendation, not knowing you and the story that well.
Morag says, can you touch quickly on the mobilize and ground steps of the OMG exercise? Just reminding us quickly what those were.
Oh goodness, I'm so sorry. I forgot them. It is very fast. Thank you, Morag. Orient. I got flustered.
No.
Orient. M comes right after orient, which is mobilize, which is wiggle your fingers and your toes and bring your attention into the sensation. It's that simple. You can expand it and wiggle your whole arms if you want. And then G is ground. Bring your attention into your sit bones and draw that line down following gravity into the earth and feel the weightiness of your body.
Awesome. So we have orient, mobilize, and ground. It's great. Carol asks, can these techniques help with high blood pressure?
We'll just have to give it a try. Because it's all about a calming and a settling.
Yes.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. Hannah says, I'm currently writing about my experience of being starved as a child, and I noticed that after completing a certain chapter, I had an acid stomach. This tells me that I still might not have healed completely in this particular area. How do I deal with this sensation?
So bringing attention into the sensation, but I would say the more that you bring your attention into your body on a regular basis, the more likely you are to catch the signs of distress in yourself before it gets to the point of being a really uncomfortable acid stomach. So a lot of it is about really starting to get intimate with our body as a part of ourselves that wants to communicate, and all the subtle layers of that. Sorry if that's not more specific, but the more we tune in, the quicker we can catch a distressed response before it escalates to something really painful.
Yeah, and I know for myself, that's something I I usually notice it once it's kind of over the edge, but by practicing kind of this intuitiveness and mindfulness as I'm going and checking in with myself, I can say, okay, am I approaching that? And rather than like, oh my gosh, I'm here and it sucks. How do I get out of this? Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Janelle. And thank you so much for everybody who has attended. We are just out of time. The comments were great. So many people talking about how this has really helped them and how they're going to use this in their writing practice. So thank you guys all for joining us. Just as we said, we will be sending out the replay of this, so you guys will be able to check it out yourself. Lisa just dropped all the links in there again. Lisa, if you could just drop them one more time, because we just had a big rush of thank yous come in. So there they go. So we have signing up for the newsletter, both of Janelle's freebies. So her Outline Your Memoir workshop, which I have had a sneak preview of, and it's great. And she talks about how she uses fairy tales to outline memoirs. It's really awesome. And then a freebie on, again, kind of memories and healing as well. So please feel free to check those out. We'll also drop them and the replay and all of that you'll get delivered to your inbox. So thank you guys so much for coming. Thank you, Janelle, and have a great rest of your day, everyone.
Thank you, Haley, and thank you everyone for joining in.
All right, see you guys later.